Dead Man by James M. Cain. He felt the train check, knew what it meant. In a moment, from up toward the engine came the chant of the railroad detective. "Rise and shine, boys, rise and shine." The hobos began dropping off. He could hear them out there in the dark, cursing as the train went by. That was what they always did on these freights, let the hobos climb on in the yards, making no effort to dislodge them there. For that would have meant a foolish game of hide and seek between 2 or 3 detectives and 200 or 300 hobos, with the hobos swarming on as fast as the detectives put them off. What they did was let the hobos alone until the train was several miles underway, when they pulled down to a speed slow enough for the men to drop off, but too fast for them to climb back on. Then the detective went down the line, brushing them off like caterpillars from a twig. In 2 minutes, they would all be ditched, a crowd of bitter men in a lonely spot, but they always cursed, always seemed surprised. He crouched in the coal gondola and waited. He hadn't boarded a flat or a refrigerator with the others, back in the Los Angeles yards, tempting though this comfort was. He wasn't long on the road, and he still didn't like to mix with the other hobos, admit he was one of them. Also, he couldn't shake off the notion that he was sharper than they were, that playing a lone hand, he might think of some magnificent trick that would give defeat the detective, and thus, even at this ignoble trade, give him a sense of accomplishment, of being good at it. He had slipped into the gond not in spite of its harshness, but because of it. It was black, and would give him a chance to hide, and the detective, not expecting him there, might pass him by. He was 19 years old, and was proud of the nickname they had given him in the pool room back home. They called him Lucky. "Rise and shine, boys, rise and shine." 3 dropped off the tank car ahead, and the detective climbed onto the ground. The flashlight shot around, and Lucky held his breath. He had curled into one of the 3 chutes for unloading coal. The trick worked. These chutes were dangerous, for if you stepped into one and the bottom dropped, it would dump you into the train. The detective took no chances. He first shot the flash, then held on the side while he climbed over the chutes. When he came to the last one, where Lucky lay, he shot the flash, but carelessly, and not squarely into the hole, so that he saw nothing. Stepping over, he went on, climbed to the boxcar behind, and resumed his chant. There were more curses, more feet sliding on ballast on the roadside. Soon the train picked up speed. That meant the detective had reached the caboose, that all the hobos were cleared. Lucky stood up, looked around. There was nothing to see, except hot dog stands along the highway, but it was pleasant to poke your head up, let the wind whip your hair, and reflect how you had outwitted the detective. When the click of the rails slowed and the station lights showed ahead, he squatted down again, dropped his feet into the chute. As soon as lights flashed alongside, he braced against the opposite side of the chute. That was one thing he had learned, the crazy way they shot the brakes on these freights. When the train jerked to a shrieking stop, he was ready and didn't get slammed. The bell tolled, the engine pulled away. There was an interval of silence. They meant they had cut the train and would be picking up more cars. Soon they would be going on. "Aha! Hiding out on me, hey?" The flashlight shot down from the boxcar. Lucky jumped, seized the side of the gond, scrambled up, vaulted. When he hit the roadbed, his ankles stung from the impact, and he staggered for footing. The detective was on him, grappling. He broke away, ran down the track, past the caboose, into the dark. The detective followed, but he was a big man and began to lose ground. Lucky was clear, when all of a sudden his foot drove against a switch bar, and he went flat on his face, panting from the hysteria of shock. The detective didn't grapple this time. He let go with a barrage of kicks. "Hide on me, will ya? Treat you right, give you a break. And you hide out on me, I'll learn you to hide out on me." Lucky tried to get up. Couldn't. He was jerked to his feet, rushed up the track on the run. He pulled back, but couldn't get set. He sat down, dug in with his sliding heels. The detective kicked and jerked in fury. Lucky clawed for something to hold on to. His hand caught the rail. The detective stamped on it. He pulled back in pain, clawed again. This time his fingers closed on a spike, sticking out an inch or two from the tie. The detective jerked. The spike pulled out of the hole, and Lucky resumed his unwilling run. "Let me go! Why did you let me go?" "Come on, hide out on me, will you? I'll learn you to hide out on me, Larry Knott." "Let me go! Let me—" Lucky pulled back, braced with his heels, got himself stopped. Then his whole body coiled like a spring and let go in one convulsive, passionate lunge. The spike, still in his hand, came down on the detective's head, and he felt it crush. He stood there, looking down at something dark and formless, lying across the rails. Hurrying down the track, he became aware of the spike, gave it a toss, heard it splash in the ditch. Soon he realized that his steps and the ties were being telegraphed by the listening rail, and he plunged across the ditch to the highway. There he resumed his rapid walk, trying not to run. But every time a car overtook him, his heels lifted queerly, and his breath first stopped, then came in gasps as he listened for the car to stop. He came to a crossroads, turned quickly to his right. He let himself run here, for the road wasn't lighted as the main highway was, and there weren't many cars. The running tired him, but it eased the sick feeling in his stomach. He came to a sign that told him Los Angeles was 17 miles, and to his left. He turned, walked, ran, stooped down sometimes, panting, to rest. After a while, it came to him why he had to get to Los Angeles, and so soon. The soup kitchen opened at 7 o'clock. He had to be there, in that same soup kitchen where he had had supper, so it would look as though he had never been away. When the lights went off, and it came broad daylight with the suddenness of Southern California, he was in the city, and a clock told him it was 10 minutes after 5. He thought he had time. He pressed on, exhausted, but never relaxing his rapid, half-shuffling walk. It was 10 minutes to 7 when he got to the soup kitchen, and he quickly walked past it. He wanted to be clear at the end of the line so he could have a word with Shorty, the man who dished out the soup, without impatient shoves from behind and growls to keep moving. Shorty remembered him. "Still here, eh?" "Still here. 3 in a row for you, holy smoke. They ought to be collecting for you by the month. Thought you'd be off." "Who, me?" "Well, Sunday, ain't it?" "Sunday, wake up. This is Saturday." "Saturday, you're kidding." "Kidding my eye. This is Saturday and a big day in this town, too." "One day looks another like to me." "Not this one. Parade." "Yeah?" "Shriners. You get that free." "Well, that's my name. Lucky." "Hey, my name's Shorty, but I'm over 6 feet." "Nothing like that with me. I really got luck." "You sure? Like, for instance, getting a hunk of meat." "I didn't give you no meat." "Ain't you going to?" Shove your plate over quick. Don't let nobody see you." "Thanks." "Okay, Lucky. Don't miss the parade." "I won't." He sat at the rough table with the others, dipping his bread in the soup, tried to eat, but his throat kept contracting from excitement, and he made slow work of it. He had what he wanted from Shorty. He had fixed the day, and not only the day, but the date, for it would be the same date as the big Shriners Parade. He had fixed his name with a little gag. Shorty wouldn't forget him. His throat relaxed, and he wolfed the piece of meat. Near the soup kitchen, he saw signs: Lincoln Park Pharmacy, Lincoln Park Cafeteria. Which way is the park, buddy?" If it was a big park, he might find a thicket where he could lie down, rest his aching legs. Straight down, you'll see it." There was a fence around it, but he found a gate, opened it, slipped in. Ahead of him was a thicket, but the ground was wet from a stream that ran through it. He crossed a small bridge, followed a path. He came to a stable, peeped in. It was empty, but the floor was thickly covered with new hay. He went in, made for a dark corner, burrowed under the hay, closed his eyes. For a few moments, everything slipped away, except warmth, relaxation, and ease. But then something began to drill into the back of his mind. Where did he spend last night? Where would he tell them he spent last night? He tried to think, but nothing would come to him. He would have said that he spent it where he spent the night before, but he hadn't spent it in Los Angeles. He had spent it in Santa Barbara and come down in the morning on a truck. He had never spent a night in Los Angeles. He didn't know the places. He had no answers to the questions that were now pounding at him like sledgehammers. What's that? Where you say you was? In a flop house. Which flop house? I didn't pay no attention which flop house. It was just a flop house. Where was this flop house at? I don't know where it was at. I never been to Los Angeles before. I don't know the names of no streets. What's this flop house look like? Look like a flop house. Come on, don't give us no gags. What this flop house look like? Ain't you got eyes? Can't you say what this here place look like? What's the matter? Can't you talk? Something gripped his arm, and he felt himself being lifted. Something of terrible strength had him, and he was going straight up in the air. He squirmed to get loose and was plopped on his feet and released. He turned, terrified. An elephant was standing there, exploring his clothes with his trunk. He knew then that he had been asleep, but when he backed away, he bumped into another elephant. He slipped between the two elephants, slithered past a third to the door, which was open about a foot. Out in the sunlight, he made his way back across the little bridge, saw what he hadn't noticed before, pins with deer in them, and ostriches and mountain sheep that told him he had stumbled into a zoo. It was after 4 o'clock, so he must have slept a long time in the hay. Back on the street, he felt a sobbing laugh rise in his throat. That was where he had spent the night. In the elephant house at Lincoln Park. What? That's right, in the elephant house. What are you giving us, a stall? It ain't no stall. I was in the elephant house. With them elephants. That's right. How you get in there? Just went in. The door was open. Just went in there. Seen the elephants and bedded down with them. Hey, I thought they was horses. You thought them elephants was horses. It was dark. I dug in under the hay. I never knowed what they was elephants till morning. How come you went in this place? I left the soup kitchen. In a couple of minutes, I came to the park. I went in there looking for some grass to lie down on. Then I come to this here place. Looked to me like a stable. I peeped in, seen the hay, and hit it. And you wasn't scared of them elephants. It was dark, I tell you. I couldn't hear them eating the hay, but I thought they was horses. I was tired, and I wanted somewhere to sleep. And then what? Then when it got light, and I seen there was elephants, I run out of there and beat it. Couldn't you tell them elephants by the smell? I never noticed no smell. How many elephants was there? 3. He brushed wisps of hay off his denims. They had been fairly new, but now they were black with the grime of the coal gone. Suddenly his heart stopped. A suffocating feeling swept over him. The questions started again, hammering at him, beating into his brain. Where'd that coal dust come from? I don't know. The freights, I guess. Don't you know it ain't no coal ever shipped into this part of the state? Don't you know here all they burn is gas? Don't you know it ain't only been but one coal car shipped in here in 6 months, and that come in by the misread train order? Don't you know that car was part of the train this here detective was riding on that got killed? Don't you know that? Come on, out with it. Where that coal dust come from? Getting rid of the denims instantly became an obsession. He felt that people were looking at him on the street, spying the coal dust, waiting till he got by, then running into drugstores to phone the police that he had just passed by. It was like those dreams he sometimes had, where he was walking through crowds naked, except that this was no dream, and he wasn't naked. He was wearing these denims, these telltale denims with coal dust all over them. He clenched his hands, had a moment of terrible concentration. Headed into a filling station. Hello. Hello. What's the chances of a job? No chances. Why not? Don't need anybody. That's not the only reason. There's about 42 other reasons. One of them is I can't even make a living myself. But it's all the reason that concerns you. Here's a dime, kid. Better luck somewhere else. I don't want your dime. I want a job. If the clothes were better, that might help, mightn't? If the clothes were good enough for Clark Gable in the swell gambling house scene, that wouldn't help a bit. Not a bit. I just don't need anybody, that's all. Suppose I got better clothes. Would you talk to me? Talk to you anytime, but I don't need anybody. I'll be back when I get the clothes. Just taking a walk for nothing. What's your name? Hook's my name. Oscar Hook. Thanks, Mr. Hook, but I'm coming back. I just got an idea. I can talk myself into a job. I'm some talker. You're all that, kid, but don't waste your time. I don't need anybody. Okay, just the same, I'll be back. He headed for the center of town, asked the way to the cheap clothes stores at Los Angeles and Temple. After an hour's trudge, he came to a succession of small stores in a Mexican quarter that were what he wanted. He went into one. The storekeeper was a Mexican, and 2 or 3 other Mexicans were standing around smoking. Mister, will you trust me for a pair of white pants and a shirt? No trust. Hey, scram. Look, I can have a job Monday morning if I can show up in that outfit. White pants and a white shirt, that's all. No trust. What you think this is, anyway? Well, I got to get that outfit somewhere. If I get that, they'll let me go to work Monday. I'll pay you as soon as I get paid off Saturday night. No trust. Sell for cash. He stood there. The Mexican stood there, smoked, looked out on the street. Presently, one of them looked at him. What kind of job, eh? What you mean got to have white pants and a white shirt to hold a job? Filling station. They got a rule. You got to have white clothes before you can work there. Oh, sure. Filling station. After a while, the shopkeeper spoke. Ha! He's a joke. Y'all been filling station must have white pants, white shirt. Ha! He's a joke. What else would I want them for? Holy smoke, these are better for the road, ain't they? Say a guy don't want white pants for riding freights, does he? What filling station? Tell me that. Guy named Hook. Oscar Hook. Got an Acme station, Maine near 20th. You don't believe me? Call him up. You go to work there, hey? I'm supposed to go to work. I told him I'd get the white pants and white shirt somehow. Well, if I don't get them, I don't go to work. Why you come to me, eh? Where else would I go? If it's not you, it's another guy down the street. No place else I can dig up the stuff over Sunday, is there? He stood around. They all stood around. Then once again the storekeeper looked up. What size you wear, eh? He had a wash at the tap at the backyard, then changed there, between piled up boxes and crates. The storekeeper gave him a white shirt, white pants, necktie, a suit of thick underwear, and a pair of shoes to replace his badly worn brogans. It's pretty cold nighttime now. A thick underwear feels better. Okay, much obliged. You can roll this other stuff up. I don't want it. Can you throw it away from me? It's pretty dirty. Plenty dirty. You know what? No. His heart leaped as the storekeeper dropped the whole pile into a rubbish brazier and touched a match to some papers at the bottom of it. In a few minutes, the denims and everything else he had worn were ashes. He followed the storekeeper inside. Okay, here's a bill. I put all my stuff on it. No charge you more than anybody else. It's $6.98. Then is a service charge, $1. All of them laughed. He took the service charge to be a gyp, overcharged to cover the trust. He nodded. Okay, on the service charge. The storekeeper hesitated. Well, $6.98. We don't make a service charge. Hey, thanks. See you keep the pants clean till Monday morning. I'll do that. See you Saturday night. Adios. Out in the street, he stuck his hand in his pockets, felt something, pulled it out. It was a $1 bill. Then he understood about the service charge and why the Mexicans had laughed. He went back, kissed the $1 bill, waved a cheery salute into the store. They all waved back. He rode a streetcar down to Mr. Hook's, got turned down for the job, rode a streetcar back, In his mind, he tried to check over everything. He had an alibi, fantastic and plausible. So far as he could recall, nobody on the train had seen him, not even the other hobos, for he had stood apart from them in the yards and had done nothing to attract the attention of any of them. The denims were burned, and he had a story to account for the whites. It even looked pretty good, this thing with Mr. Hook. For anybody who had committed a murder would be most unlikely to make a serious effort to land a job. But the questions lurked there, ready to spring at him, check and recheck as he would. He saw a sign, 5-course dinner, 35 cents. He still had 90 cents and went in, ordered steak and fried potatoes, the hungry man's dream of heaven. He ate, put a 10-cent tip under the plate. He ordered cigarettes, lit one, inhaled. He got up to go. A newspaper was lying on the table. He froze as he saw the headline. L.R. Knott, railroad man, killed. On the street, he bought a paper, tried to open it under a street light, couldn't, tucked it under his arm. He found Highway 101, caught a hay truck bound for San Francisco. Going out Sunset Boulevard, it unexpectedly pulled over to the curb and stopped. He looked warily around. Down a side street, about a block away, were the 2 red lights of a police station. He was tightening to jump and run, but the driver wasn't looking at the lights. I told them bums the air hose was leaking. They said you nuts. Supposed to keep the stuff in shape, and all they ever do is sit around and play blackjack. The driver fished a roll of black tape from his pocket and got out. Lucky sat where he was for a few minutes, then climbed down, walked to the glare of the headlights, opened his paper. There it was. L.R. Knott, railroad man, killed. The decapitated body of L.R. Knott, 1327 DeSoto Street, a detective assigned to a northbound freight, was found early this morning on the track near San Fernando Station. It is believed he lost his balance while the train was shunting cars at the San Fernando Sliding and fell beneath the wheels. Funeral services will be held tomorrow from the DeSoto Street Methodist Church. Mr. Knott is survived by a widow, formerly Miss Elsie Snowden of Mannerheim, and a son, L.R. Knott, Jr., 5. He stared at it, refolded the paper, tucked it under his arm, walked back to where the driver was taping the air hose. He was clear, and he knew it. Boy, did they call you Lucky? Is your name Lucky? I'll say it is. He leaned against the trailer, let his eye wander down the street. He saw the 2 red lights of the police station glowing. He looked away quickly. A queer feeling began to stir inside him. He wished the driver would hurry up. Presently, he went back to the headlights again, found the notice, reread it. He recognized that feeling now. It was the old Sunday night feeling that he used to have back home, when the bells would ring and he would have to stop playing, hide in the twilight, go to church, and hear about the necessity of being saved. It shot through his mind the time he had played hooky from church and hid in the livery stable, and how lonely he had felt because there was no one else to play hide with, and how he had sneaked into church and stood in the rear to listen to the necessity of being saved. His eyes twitched back to the red lights, and slowly, shakily, but unswervingly, he found himself walking toward them. I want to give myself up. Yeah, I know, you're running for grand larceny in Hackensack, New Jersey. No, we quit giving them rides when the New Deal come in. Beat it. I killed a man. You? When was it you done this? Last night. Where? Near here. San Fernando. It was like this. Hey, wait till I get a card. Okay, what's your name? Ben Fuller. No middle name? They call me Lucky. Lucky? Like in good luck? Yes, sir. Lucky, like in good luck.
So that was Dead Man by James M. Cain. Our guest narrator was Michael Rutland from Austin, Texas. And Michael's working on starting his own YouTube channel, and he got in touch with me. And I liked his voice, so I hope you liked it too. I'm going to get his links in the show notes so that you can, if you want to follow up and see what he's doing, you can link through to that. So, let me tell you something about James M. Cain. So James M. Cain was born in 1892, died in 1977, was an American novelist, journalist, and screenwriter, best known for his hard-boiled crime fiction. In fact, he is one of the triumvirate of hard-boiled writers, the others being Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, of course. So Cain was born in Annapolis, Maryland. Cain began his career as a journalist, working for the Baltimore Sun and the New Yorker. His experiences as a reporter heavily influenced his writing style, which was characterized by its directness, realism, and unflinching exploration of human nature's darker aspects. Cain's life was marked by personal struggles and failed marriages, which often found their way into his fiction, adding depth and authenticity to his characters and their predicaments. Cain is considered one of the founding fathers, as we've said, of both the noir and hardboiled. I'm going to say something about the difference between those in a second. Crime fiction genres. His novels, such as The Postman Always Rings Twice, most of his novels have been made into movies at least once, sometimes more than once. And Double Indemnity, 1943. So Postman Always Rings Twice, 1934. His parents were of Irish extraction. And the idea that the postman always rings twice apparently was suggested to him as an Irish custom. They always knock twice to let you know it's the postman, apparently. So I read. And Double Indemnity, 1943. And these genres, we look back on them, we think, oh, that's hard-boiled. But he was creating them with Chandler and Hammett and some others were creating hard-boiled as they went along, it was in the process of production. So his writing style, his particular life experience and his personality goes to create hard-boiled and noir as well. So he favours sharp, concise prose and dialogue, sets the standard for future generations of crime writers. You can see, and I've said before, this very different style. We get the Victorians, which we've had here, and the more English or British coziness of it. The cozy crime writing, where it's not taken that seriously, whereas the hard-boiled stuff's real gritty. And this has gone on. The two have diverged, of course, and we still have on TV and movies. Mainly on TV, we have the cozy stuff and lots of books. But the hard-boiled, that has gone on into Hollywood and most of the crime movies and even the police procedurals and things like that are of that lineage, if you like. Okay. So, while often used interchangeably, noir and hard-boiled have different characteristics. Hard-boiled fiction typically fears a tough, cynical protagonist, often a private detective or a criminal, as in this case, navigating a corrupt and violent world. Check. The emphasis on action, dialogue, smart repartee, isn't it? We see how that's gone into movies. Even Sylvester Stallone and Arnie. I'll Be Back, and all these, and Die Hard. All these, they're in very dangerous situations, and they always manage to say something remarkably witty. And I think it comes from this again lineage of the fast-talking, wisecracking, morally ambiguous person who's doing his best, and it usually is a he, to navigate this corrupt and violent world, which is it's a fallen world that they live in. Noir fiction delves deeper into the psychological depths of its characters, exploring themes of moral ambiguity, existentialism, and the inescapable consequences of one's actions. So this story here is very much in that noir. Cain's work often blurred the lines between noir and hard-boiled, combining the gritty realism of hard-boiled, we've got that, with the psychological complexity and fatalism of noir. So in a funny way, the Dead Man story, it's fated, isn't it? It's he doesn't really do anything. He attempts to do things to get himself off the hook, but in the end, it's fate it's his lucky nature. That's the whole point of this story. It's fate that decides the roll of the dice, whether you're going to, and I suppose the whole background of that is, and the whole cultural and sociological background of it was, people were given really hard, tough times through no fault of their own. It was just fate, with the Depression and things like that and the aftermath of the Depression. Okay. So his life experience, so he often drew on his personal experiences and observations to inform his writing. And while he might not have had directly experienced all the situations he wrote about, his diverse background and keen eye for detail, because he's a journalist, remember, so even if he's not he's not living that, he's seeing people, he's talking to people, he's going to places where all sorts of dark and often violent things occur, certainly at the bottom of society, really. And this allows him to create realistic, emotionally resonant stories. So he was an insurance salesman in the 1920s, and they reckon that is behind his novel Double Indemnity, which revolves around an insurance scam and murder plot. He worked lots of odd jobs as a meat packer and a clerk. I said that in an American way. May have helped him develop a deep understanding of the struggles and aspirations of working class Americans, a theme that features prominently in many of his works. He wanted to be a singer, so he's failed, but he failed. His failed attempt at a singing career and his love for music also found their way into his writing. Several of his novels, including Serenade and Mildred Pierce, feature characters who are musicians who aspire to be singers. This is his own passion for that, you see. His tumultuous personal life, which included multiple marriages and divorces, may have influenced his portrayal of complex, often dysfunctional relationships in his stories. The themes of love, betrayal, and the consequences of one's actions are central to many of his plots. And in fact, if you think of Chandler as well, Farewell, My Lovely, and The Big Sleep and things like that. Chinatown, I know that isn't them, but that is hard-boiled noir. So noir is about the psychological ruminations, and hard-boiled, they don't have to be psychological, they don't have to ruminate. So a lot of Dashiell Hammett's stuff, seems to me, and I'm maybe being unfair, but some of the stories we've seen, they're not particularly psychologically informed. The characters don't kind of worry about guilt. They just live this tough life in a tough world, and they do tough things, which we like, But and don't get me wrong, I love Dashiell Hammett. But Cain is psychologically complex. If you think of those stories we've talked about, there's a lot of psychological stuff in there about, betrayal and about how lust, not in this story, Dead Man, but can lead us down some places where we didn't want to go. So there we are, Dead Man itself. So what it's considered a noir story. So you know the story, no spoilers. You've just heard it. A desperate man who accidentally kills a railroad detective and is subsequently consumed by guilt and paranoia. So what we see there is that it's a very interesting and unusual structure in that most of the dialogue is imaginary. So he has dialogue with real people, and he thinks, oh, the coal, I'm going to have to go and get these clothes off these Mexicans, and he kind of tells them a bunch of untruths or stretches, the lies basically, to get himself. And it's not clear. They seem to be quite nice guys, really, but it's a cynical world that he lives in, and it's a tough world as well. There's soup kitchens. You have to sleep out. You have to go from place to place. So on the railroads, it's a tough life. But as I was saying, most of the rumination on this, he's having conversations with imaginary detectives. So he's being quizzed by detectives in an imaginary way. So this is the first story, I think, also to interject to myself, the first story that we've done where we have a criminal as the protagonist rather than a detective. Usually we have, in the stories, we have a criminal and a detective, but it's usually the detective who we are looking through, whose eyes we're looking through. But in this case, it's the criminal. And it's morally ambiguous, isn't it? Because he gets away with murder. He's murdered somebody. You may feel for him because they're living this tough life, and these railway detectives are but they're people with kids and families, and they're just doing their job, and they don't deserve to get their head staved in, really, do they? But it is morally ambiguous. We can see something about, this man's desperate, and then he's got these paranoid delusions that they're not real delusions. He doesn't really think he's talking to detectives, but he kind of rehearses it as we do. And that rings true, isn't it? All of us, I don't know about you, but I have imaginary, I'm going to ring somebody, I'm going to say this, and they'll say that, and then I'll say this. And of course, when it happens, nobody ever says that. It never goes like that at all. And this is the case here, you see. Something to finally say about the figure of the rail-riding hobo, which has long been a staple of American fiction. On one hand, representing a sense of freedom, adventure, and escape from the constraints of society. And we think of Jack Kerouac in that. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the United States underwent rapid industrialization and urbanization. Many writers turned to the hobo as a symbol of resistance against the dehumanizing effects of modern life. Authors such as Jack London, John Dos Passos, and Jack Kerouac celebrated the hobo's unconventional lifestyle and spirit of rebellion. One wonders if that's romanticizing it, and I guess most of these guys were just actually desperate, living miserable, cold, drunk, maybe not as cold in California, but drunken, because you need something to get you through the night. So Cain offers a darker tale and probably closer to the truth. Kerouac's got this, he dips into that life, doesn't he? And maybe being unfair. I know the number of people who listen to our Kerouac fans. And I'm not a fan, but I'm just saying that he perhaps romanticizes it as this romantic rebel, whereas Cain probably paints it because he's a journalist. He's seen the tough side of life. We made all those points. The other thing about Cain using his life experiences that his grandfather, his dad's dad, P.W. Cain, was a superintendent for the Hartford Railroad. So you can imagine sitting, I don't know how close he was to his grandfather. I mean, I could work it out with the dates and find out when his granddad died and how, but he may have died when he was very little, but I don't know that. But one may imagine the young Jimmy, as I call him, at his granddad's knee being told all these romantic stories of the railroad, which you take with you. Anyway, I thought it was a great story. And I thought, that our narrator, Michael Rutland from Austin, Texas, whose links will be in the show notes, was great. I thought it was really, really good. Okay. All right. I'll be doing some more. There'll be some more guest narrators. Keep it coming. Okay.